Assalamu alaikum, fam. Hope you're doing well. So, as you know, many of you know, when I was younger, I tried to commit suicide. So, let me tell you a lesson that I learned that's gonna help you, I think. Inshallah. If somebody is telling you you don't matter, what you do doesn't matter, that the way you contribute isn't really effective, or it's not needed, it's not your job, you're replaceable, it's not really making a difference, it has no impact, has no influence, it's not important to value it, and they're minimizing your efforts, just know that that's a form of psychological abuse, because in your darkest hours, you're going to have thoughts like that come in your head, but with more potency. And trying to stay alive while some dark thoughts like that come in your head are going to be very difficult for you. So, God forbid you ever have to be tested in that way. But know that you should not be allowing people to talk down to you, to put you in a box, to lock it and toss you in the ocean and say they're doing it for your own good or because they care about you. Just remember that you don't know your full measurement until the accounting is done. You cannot count your chickens before the eggs hatch. And sometimes every decision has its cons and its negatives and different implications. Its positives and negatives. Its pros and cons. So if someone doesn't really have the full data, they don't really know you, they have their perspective, you must be careful with how much advice you take from them and how that gets put into your own view of yourself. Because at the end of the day, you know your intentions, you know your sincerity, you know what it's going to take for you to achieve what you want to achieve. Success isn't easy, striving isn't easy. Keep going down the path you're supposed to go, the transformation is supposed to happen. It isn't always a smooth transition or, bump free. There's growing that's involved. There's lessons that have to be learned. There's perspectives that have to be discussed and analyzed and dissected. And not everything is always pretty, right? It's like when you're butchering down a cow, some of the grosser parts, the intestines, it's obviously not as fun to take those apart, right? To do that part, the gutting, as it is to cut a filet mignon, right? So know, with however you contribute in your life to people around you, or to your knowledge base, or your school, or your club, or whatever it is you're doing, that your efforts. If someone comes to you and starts riddling in your ear, putting doubt into your mind, trying to make you feel like it's not important, that you should just change it all, just walk away, you should really think about that. Because some people, they need to see who you are and what you are, and if they know your value, they won't tell you to give up your value. They will adapt, merge, unify, not separate, divide, destroy, and turn everything into ash. You can bend, you can compromise, but if you completely shatter who you are for the sake of others' approval, you will have a harder time finding out who you are and your purpose. Because once you get beaten down, it's easier to keep on beating you, right? If you're stepping on something that's almost already flat, it's not hard to keep making it flatter. But if there's still some edges to it, it makes the stomping a bit harder. So just remember that if you have people around you in your circle who whisper things to you, put doubt into your mind, put you down psychologically, you distance yourself from them, and you be very cautious of how much advice you take from them. Because there are unhealthy ways of trying to convince somebody to do something. And if you must do it in a way that is oppressive, that feels wrong, that causes more anxiety, pain, and suffering, and makes that person feel minimized, that's not healthy. And how can you build a bond by doing something very unhealthy? And it's filled with judgment. You must also be careful. You have to be careful whose opinions you take in and whose perspectives you will take into your heart. Because some people can claim they want the best, and some people can actually want the worst, or have their own motives and intentions. So that's when it comes up to you. It comes up to you having to reflect on what is your purpose. And no one can tell you what your purpose is. No one can tell you what it is, because you know what it is. The only person who knows what's inside your head is you and Allah. So if someone's on the outside looking in, and they already have their preconceived notions, they already have their goals, their agenda, and they don't pay too much attention to what you're doing or even ask you what is the purpose of your doing, and they tell you things that you don't matter, it's not helping anyone, you're replaceable. There's truth in that for certain jobs, for certain things that are not as potent and valuable. But if you are working on something that you care about, that means something to you, that adds meaning to your life, and somebody is coming to you minimizing that, that's a red flag. Because if something means something to you, and that person knows it, and they're trying to reduce you down and say it doesn't matter what you're doing, and they see that that matters to you, it's a form of psychological abuse. And you have to be wary of that. And you have to be resistant to, just because they're attractive, or they have wealth, or they have friends, they have status. There's different ways that people will think they're entitled, right, to just, you have to automatically agree with what I say. But sometimes the more noble path, the harder path, is one that isn't as they say, easy. And some people won't understand you, and they don't want to understand you. They have their preconceived notions, they have their image of you, they have their assumptions. And if they don't even take the time to dissect you and to really get to know you and hear your perspective, but they're telling you what your perspective is when they don't even know the whole picture, they only have a pixel, then you must guard your mental health, you must guard your sanity. So just remember that, because in the darkest days, there's going to be those thoughts that creep into your head. And do you want somebody at your side in your inner circle when you're already going through a tough time, who's already trying to pluck out your hairs one by one until you have nothing left, and then they'll just keep going? You can tell a lot by people by how they support you, or how they urge you in a direction that they can clearly see won't make you happy. And if they try to convince you to let it go without asking you why you want to hold on to it, that's something you must consider as well. So just be cautious and watch out for abuse, because it's not healthy. And in these tough times, you have to watch out for personalities that are too quick to minimize efforts of others while thinking they have all the answers. So reflect upon what I said.